My restoration presentation is the first mission to England. It is connected to Unit 9 and major concepts 3 and 4. It is actually not doctrine, but a historical event. For my presentation, I created a timeline, and it is sourced from my two related scholarly articles, along with several other sources I found, and you can see my sources there. Now, the mission to England didn't actually start officially until 1837, but in 1836 is where you can start tracing the build up to it. When in Canada, some English immigrants who later would end up being instrumental to the mission joined the church. Now we head to Kirtland, where the Kirtland Safety Society opens, and this creates a lot of tension that starts to spiral out of control. And it gets to the point where Joseph Fielding wrote in his journal that on my arrival in Kirtland, I was much cast down and troubled. I found the saints were far from being all righteous. And this goes into key concept number 1, where it was during the tempest of the Kirtland apostasy that the inspiration came to send missionaries to England. And in Ronald A. Rasband's April 2010 General Conference talk, The Divine Call of a Missionary, he references this instance when Joseph Smith came to Heber C. Kimball in the Kirtland Temple and told him that he needs to go on a mission. Now, this was not the ideal timing at all, because things were so crazy, but Heber C. Kimball accepted the call and started to gather everyone to be able to go on the mission. And by the time they left Kirtland, it was to the point where it was so bad that they probably didn't know if there was going to be a real Kirtland to come back to. And this gives us into key concept number 2, that it was this mission and the converts that came from it that strengthened and unified the church and the quorum of the 12 apostles and formed the 12 into what we see them as today. Now, on July 20th, 1837, the first group of Latter-day Saint missionaries arrived in England. And a few days later, when they rode into Preston, the people of Preston were getting ready for an election. And as they came into Preston, the people of Preston were lowering a banner that said, "Truth shall prevail." And this seemed to really strike home with the missionaries, because Joseph Fielding wrote in his journal that this we took as from the Lord. This is our motto: truth shall prevail. A couple days later, on July 23rd, Heber C. Kimball preached for the first time in England. And on the same day, back in Kirtland, Joseph Smith received a revelation. Now, this revelation was meant for the 12, and it reprimanded them for the part that they had played in the Kirtland apostasy, and it also gave hope and advice for the future. And this is now canonized as D&C 112, and in verse 19 it says, "Go ye, and I will be with you, and in whatsoever place ye shall proclaim my name, and effectual doors shall be opened unto you, that they may receive my word." Now, a little while later in Preston, a bright early morning, several soon-to-be converts raced to the banks of the River Ribble, and George D. Watts happened to win this foot race, and he also happened to be the first one baptized. I'm not sure if there's a correlation there or not, but it's fun to think about. And just a few days later, the first branch in England was organized. Now, we're starting to wrap up what I like to call part 1 of the England mission. And in Joseph Smith papers, it says, in April 1838, before returning to the United States, Heber C. Kimball and Orson Hyde installed the presidency of the church in Great Britain. The original presidency remained intact until the quorum of the 12 apostles arrived in England in spring 1840. Back in far west, Missouri, we're starting to ramp up for part 2 of the England mission. And it starts with the revelation that Joseph Smith receives that is now canonized as D&C 118. And in verse 4, it says, "And next spring, let the 12 depart to go over the great waters and there promulgate my gospel." Now, the 12 have officially been called to preach on a mission in England, but there's a little bit of a gap in time before they have to head out. And this gap allows them to work on becoming more humble and to grow more harmony between them. And James E. Faust, in his October 2005 General Conference talk called And Chosen, talks about this harmony that exists in the Quorum of the 12 today. And if we look at context from history, it's a harmony that the 12 apostles had to work on and grow. And it was during this little gap of time and also on their mission that they grew this harmony. And once they returned from their mission, they were a very different quorum than what left, and people that Joseph Smith could rely on. Now, we continue, and they did a lot of cool, good things on the Quorum of the 12 did when they were out in England on their mission, and that really grew the church. But what we're going to talk about is June 6th, 1840. And this is what I want you guys to take away from this. This is the key takeaway, that the saints that came from England are the ones who filled the rank and file of the church and became loyal members who eventually followed Brigham Young out to Utah. It was the addition of these British saints that truly saved the church in a time when it was on the brink of collapse. Thank you.